Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back again today to talk about Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 34 of 2023. Yeah, we are approaching a break here soon, I'm pretty sure. I guess, 35, 36 we get a break, or like 36, 30. We're getting a break sometime soon in Shonen Jump. But I'm not too worried about that today, because today, like I said, talking about issue number 34, and to be honest, I feel like this was a very solid week in Jump. Like, there was very few series that I actively sort of disliked, and even the series that most people would look at and say, yeah, that's normally bad. Like, I didn't think it was necessarily as bad as many people are trying to point out and be like, yeah, no good, no good. But yeah, I mean, this was a very solid week. I mean, looking at my spreadsheet, because if you don't know here, on this channel, whenever I talk about Shonen Jump, I normally like to run down every series that I read in the magazine. And in doing that, talk about whatever just stuck out to me in a chapter, not really going through and reviewing each story beat for beat to beat and jokes and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the video, and if you just want to hear this, just go and skip there to the end, I talk about the actual, like, what is going on in Shonen Jump and my rankings based on that. So, like, I rank every series from what I think was the best series to the worst series. This week there was another 14 series. It's sort of been like a solid middle area here for a good little while here. But like I said, I really think the only chapter I didn't really enjoy this week is Elusive Samurai. With things like Nue's Exorcist, like, I actually enjoyed them to a certain amount, when in previous weeks that really hasn't happened. But to really just get into it and let's start off with talking about the cover of Shonen Jump this week. And the cover is an actual very interesting one, because it is One Piece on the cover of the magazine. Yeah, One Piece gets a cover ever so often, and it's Luffy on there, along with the live action Luffy, because Netflix is doing their Netflix, or One Piece live action show. Not Netflix live action show, that's just real life. But they're doing this One Piece live action show, and they had a really big trailer come out for it at, I think it was San Diego Comic-Con here this past weekend. So it makes sense that the actor, which I don't know his name, I'm sorry, don't hate on me, but the actor that plays Luffy is all dressed up as Luffy, along with the actual Luffy there, who's drawn in and, like, hanging on his shoulder. So it's a pretty cool cover page, I just have to say. I mean, fine cover of Shonen Jump. I mean, it's nothing special, but it's also, like, not the worst thing I've ever seen. But to actually start off talking about stuff, let's start off with My Hero Academia, chapter number 395. We're getting oh so close to 200. Where we pretty much see that last time all of the Twice clones had disappeared, and that's where the chapter sort of starts off. All of the Twice clones are disappearing, and we even see one of the Twice clones that was sort of copied to look as Toga, or like a double but made of Toga, just not actually Toga herself, was fighting Hawks. And Hawks was just, like, talking like, yeah, Bubi Gawara was a pretty good guy at the end of the day, and makes sense for Hawks' whole character arc, right? But we see that he just looks really bloodied, along with, like, Ida. We see Ida's here, and we also see the Todoroki family, and they are completely destroyed. At this point, we sort of just go over to Toga and Ochako, where the battle is sort of ended, and we get the idea that, yeah, Uraraka isn't looking good. She got stabbed really well, and Toga ends up drinking her blood and ends up doing a blood transfusion for Uraraka, something very akin to what Twice did for her whenever she got really messed up by Curious in the My Villain Academia arc. And it's the whole thing of, like, where the two of them are just getting along very interestingly. And it's that thing where Toga's like, hey, Ochako, you made me so truly, genuinely happy at the end. And it's a weird thing to where it's like, so what's going to happen to Toga after this? Because, well, she's not, like, Garp, where, like, you can tell, like, yeah, he's probably not making it out. He's just sitting here, you're just like, huh, is Toga going to make it out of this alive? I mean, what is her story arc going from here? Is she going to die? Because just the way it's all phrased up in a chapter, it's a big confusion of, that's very interesting. I mean, what's really going on here? But yeah, it was a fine chapter, and being that this is probably Toga's last big appearance in the series, yeah, I think it was a good chapter through and through. Next is One Piece, chapter 1088, where we get a color double-page spread that had the magazine cover this week. And it is pretty much just showing, yeah, it's the One Piece live action thing, but it's all of our characters. It's everybody in their pre-time skip appearance during the East Blue. So we see Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and Sanji there, along with all of their enemies that they will be facing. So we even see like Shanks, who, yeah, appeared in the first chapter. We see Kobe, little kid before he got his all glow up. I mean, we'll see that here in this chapter. Buggy, Captain Koro, we even see Garp, Mihawk, Fishman Arlong, and we also see one other person who is really covered up and obscured, and I think it's the guy that they fight during a Baratier arc that's not Mihawk, but I totally forget the person's name because they just weren't important enough to have me remember it. So yeah, it's very interesting just to see that, and yeah, very cool color page. But we pretty much start off with its chapter 1088, Final Lesson, which, yeah, it doesn't speak too highly for Garp, but we get a lot of flashbacks to the thing of just Garp training both Helmeppo and Kobe, and just going through and just all that's being done, and eventually Garp is just saying to everybody, like, hey boys, you can save everybody here on this island, you can save the ship that's having the hand come down to, and he's like, Kobe, you destroyed a hand of that island monster, Rear Admiral Russ, protect the ship from all of the falling rubble, and Lieutenant Commander Helmeppo, make sure those two aren't interfered with. And we just see everybody doing their job as they go through it, and Garp does the punch out Aokiji some more, and they just keep fighting, and we see a really awesome thing where Garp does one of his Galaxy Divide finishing moves, and just punches the island in his skull, and it like all collapses, and we see like Avalo Pizarro is like, oh no, that really hurt. And we get flashbacks of like what Helmeppo thinks of all of this, and he ends up sort of harming himself to end up actually protecting Colby, and we then go to a flashback where Colby was actually punching the battleship bags every day, so we're trying to train stronger, do all that. Colby comes in with his armament hockey and punches the hand of the ship, and we see Rear Admiral Gruss sort of come up and use his glop glop fruit to piece together all the web to keep the island from crumbling on the ship. And it's just a really cool chapter, really showing what Colby and all of these Marines were capable of. And at the end of the chapter, it's something just being said is like, alright, all we need to go is get back Garp, everybody's saved, but Garp comes on the intercom and is like, hey, this is Garp. The mission was to rescue Captain Kobe is complete. Get away from the island at full speed. Your safety is your top priority here. I'll manage myself my own. And he's like, isn't that right? And he's like, one day what happened here will be a major threat to all pirates. Keep going onward. All of you are the future of the Navy. As we see all of the Blackbeard pirates like Sanyuan Wolf and Shiryu of the Rain, we just see all of them around Garp's body, which looks half frozen to death, as we get a shot of Aokiji's like cold frozen face as Garp is just laughing, and probably his final moment, so he's going out with a smile like One Piece is. And yeah, Garp is probably going to be dead after this. Like, I really don't see him escaping this unless he's like a prisoner of war, but I honestly would think that Blackbeard would want to kill Garp, so it's a very interesting thing of, yeah, he's probably not making it out of here. And then we just get some narration just going, alright, well, here's what's going on at Egghead. So we're going back to Egghead after like 3 months. The one thing about Egghead is that it's a very confusing arc, and Teching 101, another YouTuber you probably know if you're watching this video, did a very good video sort of just describing everything that's going on at Egghead Island right now, and it was just very informative and very helpful to just have. So I'd recommend, if you don't remember what's going on in Egghead, go check out that video, because it was a really great video. But yeah, that's One Piece, and Garp and Colby just showed off so much cool stuff, and it was just an awesome chapter through and through. I mean, it was great. Next up is Black Clover, chapter 366, titled Headliner, where as we were going through it, pretty much Asta's just like, oh man, when are they going to be here? And Ryu's like, hey, they're Asta, they're almost here, get ready. And Asta's like, hey, all of you, thank you so very much for your help, right? As we see Finral appear through the portal, and he's like, oh, hey, here's where you are, Asta, I'm here to pick you up. And he's like, Master Finral, you're here, right? As all of this is going on here, but Rio's like, hey, Finral, you got room for one more in there? And obviously Finral's just like, who are you? But he's like, hey, you see Chica over there? I want you to take her with you. So Chica is coming to the Clover Kingdom, not going to be in the Land of the Sun anymore, because yeah, she's Kindiami, so it checks out there. We also see the really cool dude with Black Clover. Oh man, I think he won my character of the week one week, so I just need to go check what his name is. Maybe not. He's like the really cool dude who's like friends with I don't remember his name, I'm sorry. But we pretty much see that Chica's going to see Yami, and Finral drags them both through the portal. So yeah, Asta's here, as we saw last chapter. And pretty much the rest of the chapter just consists with him showing off his anti-magic and using Zitin to completely destroy the Paladin Dimitio. So yeah, pretty cool. Not like the best chapter ever, but still a very solid chapter with Black Clover altogether. Next up is Undead Unlocked chapter number 168. And this chapter is just a pure treat. We get the whole ending of the Rinseika, I forget what it's called, the Tenryusai. Yeah, I think it's Tenryusai, the martial arts tournament that's going on in the series. We see that, yes, they have recruited Shin and Mui, along with Mei is coming with them too, so that's pretty cool. And there's just a bunch of cute stuff in between both Mui and Shin. That's pretty awesome. And then we look outside the door. Yeah, Fuko and Fang are facing off because they're fighting. And it looks like a whole thing is that if Fuko won a battle against Fang before Shin woke up, then Fang would join them in Union. But we pretty much see at the end of it that she's like, hey Fang, we're gonna have a really hard mission, do you wanna come do stuff? And she opens up Shin's eye to use Untruth. So it's a thing to where, alright, yeah, Fang's gonna ally himself with him. As we cut back to, oh man, look, they're back at the Union Round Table, and oh man, it's Apocalypse. As he just gets really upset, they're like, this is a sacred round table, quit using it as an assembly hall for all of our side quests going on, right? And Fuko makes a really interesting note of, it took 200 long years, but we're finally halfway there. As we see that the current amount of negators that they have with them is 13, which yeah, it makes sense. There's 13 people that we've come to know here in this newest loop. And it's like, all we need now are the last 11. As we see, yeah, all of the characters that make sense, that all of the younger ones that of course wouldn't be quite really alive yet, as we really focus on Rip and Latla, which I was, at the beginning of this chapter, was like, alright, yeah, Rip and Latla, they've got to be the next arc. I mean, they're two of like the best characters in the series, and their tragedy has got to be coming up soon. But we also see Chikara and Top, and an interesting thing is we also see Juez, which I thought since she lived through so many loops, she wouldn't be reborn again, which doesn't, like, that was just my understanding of it. Like, once you gave up that ideal, you wouldn't reawaken. But I don't really understand. But we also see like Tatiana, Bunny, and like Burn and Unlove, and in the corner we see Andy. Cause yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the last negator that we get back, or if he's off on his own and he's the one who's dealing with Rip and Latla and that sort of thing. Cause I feel like that'd be a fun thing to, yeah, we haven't seen Andy in a while, so let's go cut over to him and he's dealing with Rip and Latla. So that would be really cool to see, right? But we pretty much see that the next mission isn't going to involve infiltration as long as long-term combat. And she's like, I'm gonna need 6 to 10 people to accompany me. And Nico's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I will now announce the participants. As it's like Gina and Sean. It's like, alright, makes perfect sense. Yeah, 2 very important characters. We see Billy, and even Mr. Ashin, which, okay, I like the Ashin from the previous timeline better, but sure, I guess this Ashin will work fine. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's gonna have a massive role in the arc. Shin and Mui, you gotta love that. I mean, they obviously just got added to the crew, so it makes sense. Nico and Chico, makes sense. and Fuko and Fang. And Fang's just like, it's a mission with such strong fighters that she's wary of. I can't wait. As we see that we are getting a school arc, as we cut to, oh, who's in the gang going to be helping? Oh, it's Chikara. That's great. They're going to get Unmove again finally, as we see his friend who we haven't seen in a while. As we see it, they have transfer students. And who are the two transfer students in Chikara's class? Well, it's Gina and Fuko. Okay. And we see that they end up sitting over there by Chikara. And we didn't see where everybody else is in the school, as we see that Shin and Mui are both playing students. Sean is also playing a student. Shin is playing a principal. Nico is a chemistry teacher. Billy is a history teacher. Ichiko is a school nurse. Gina and Fuko are students, obviously. And Fang is a PE teacher. Where will this arc go? I have no idea whatsoever, but it's just such a funny chapter, just seeing like, man, I really hope it's Rip and Latla and just going through and like, oh no, it's Chikara arc, I can't wait for this, and oh no, it's transfer student time. It's just so funny, and I just genuinely can't wait to see where this arc goes. So I thought Undead Unluck was just perfect this week. And the next chapter is Ichinose's family's deadly sins, as we pretty much see that, yes, Tsubasa meets up with Sota. It's a really big deal, as we see that Sota sort of has a family but isn't a family, and really the big point of the chapter is we learn that everybody else here in this sort of family that Sota's made, they are all people who have been hurt by their parents in the past, so they all come to live together and sort of make their own family. And it's just like a really weird, demented thing, is it like just keeps going on, and just the really big highlight of it is like the last page is Tsubasa's like, man, this is just like a family, as we see Sota, Tsubasa, and these other two people sort of just sitting there, and it's all upside down, and it's just very weird, demented, and interesting for what's going to happen next. And it's one of those things where like, yeah, Ichinose's family deadly sins, I'm going to sit there, read it, and be like, huh, very interesting, but at the same time, like, huh, what in the world? It was a fine chapter, but it definitely wasn't, like, to the heights of something like Undead Unluck or any of those other series this week. Leading us into the next chapter, which is another one that I don't think was massively great. It's sort of like whenever it started here a few weeks ago, I was like, yeah, it's gonna really just get into a groove and stay there. And that is what's going on right now with Martial Master Asumi, as we pretty much see this is the confrontation match between Kazuro and Nito, as they're going to be going against each other. And we see that Nito's all very pumped up as Nao comes over and is like, hey, put on your headgear, get ready for this. And we pretty much see that, yeah, Nito got so cocky because he won like 2 or 3 matches, and Kazutoro is just so much against him. And it's a bunch of things where they're just like fighting back and forth, and it's a bunch of MMA stuff which I don't understand, which, alright then. But we pretty much see that, yeah, Nito eventually gets Kazuro in a headlock or a triangle choke. I don't know what these things are called. And as they keep doing it, it's pretty much just like, hey, Nito, or Nito's like, hey, Kazuro, just come see your family. I mean, our grandfather's your family, even if he is an old geezer you don't like, just come see him once or twice, since that is all that his grandfather always held in his mind. I mean, yeah, he has dementia, so it makes sense. But the whole idea is, alright, this triangle choke is something that could maybe make Kazuro pass out. So, oh boy, I wonder what's going to happen next time. It was a fine chapter, but again, it wasn't one of my favorites. But going on to one of my favorites is Tenmaku Cinema, which again was at the bottom of Jump this week, so that sucks. But the chapter is all about movies and music, as we pretty much see the movie making group club needs music, and who's going to make that music but Akitsu. And it's a very cool chapter just relating on making music and a whole team, and Akitsu and Karai. So it's just a really nice chapter, and if you want to hear more thoughts on it from me, I will have an actual review up of the entire chapter up on the channel at some point. So if you really want to see that, go check out that video, because I'm not trying to spoil my thoughts here, if you know what I'm saying. So go check out that if you want my full thoughts on Tenmaku Cinema. But it was a very good chapter with Akitsu really taking the reins in it. next up is, of course, Kill Blue, where it's a chapter and it's like, alrighty, it's finally time for Otogami versus Tenma Tendo, and they just go back and forth doing things as Tenma ends up scoring a goal at one point, and eventually Otogami's like, hey guys, to like, what's the guy's name? I actually forgot, but like the guy at the pacifier is like, hey, just stay out of it for a bit, like we'll take care of it, I'll take care of Tenma. As we see the two of them are going together, and Tenma is unleashing his full strength against Otogami just because, yeah, they just are going to go against each other, and they are sort of equally matched where they are both having fun. As we pretty much see that at the end of the chapter, it's a big deal of Otogami's like, hey, I don't care about much, but I just want to say, don't make fun of the home ec club. Like, I don't want to reflect on you, what you did, but it doesn't mean it's convenient for you. I'm talking about real heartfelt gratitude for the rice balls we made you. Is it so hard to say thank you? As we see that, yeah, it looks like he is scoring a goal on the great and strong Tenma Tendo. We'll see how much longer this sort of mini arc lasts, but I'm sure it won't be more than like, we'll probably have maybe 2 more chapters focused on Tenma, before we sort of move on. So yeah, it was fine enough, and I mean, I do like Tenma Tendo, but it does suck a little. It is, for some reason, doing better than Himaku Cinema, when I think one series is better, but that's besides the point. A series I think both of them are normally better than is Nue's Exorcist, as we continue what was going on last time, as we see that Shiroha and Gakuro were sort of having trouble like allying each other to fight against the other exorcists. As we go through it and we see that, yeah, alright, Gakuro and Shiroha are actually doing really good, and they make quick work of all of these spirits as they're going through it. And there's a whole thing where one of the girls isn't very happy with this, so she uses like one of those hollow summoning candies from Bleach, pretty much, and summons a bunch of these spirits into one area and uses a concentrated dome to block it off from everybody. But what ends up happening is all the spirits get way too strong and this girl can't deal with them. But Gakuro ends up saving them by breaking through this barrier, which doesn't really make sense to Shiroha, but he ends up saving them, and it's just a nice thing of, oh yeah, he saves them, look at that. But his soul gear runs out because it took a lot to destroy that protective barrier, so Shiroha comes in and just ends it out for her, and she's like, hey, it might be better now if I couldn't talk to you anymore, Yajima. Oh, look at that. And Gakuro's like, oh yeah, thank you. As we sort of get like there was a rivalry between two of these girls, and they said some mean things back there, so they apologize to each other, and one of them tries to grow close to Gakuro, and it's a big thing at the end where we learn more about yeah, Gakuro doesn't have parents and Shiroha doesn't either, so look at that. To be honest, I enjoyed this chapter to a certain extent. I don't think it was as bad as some previous chapters, such an extent that it didn't get what I thought was the worst series of the week, so that's always nice. Not really any standout characters, but one very important thing that we learned is that Gakuro ended up slaying, where is it here? Ooh, if I could find it. But we see that he slayed a certain amount of spirits, and he's got about like 150 left, if I'm not mistaken. So while he made it towards on his quota, he is not. He slayed 120 spirits, so he's got one more day to beat 180 of them. So alright, makes sense. He still has to do some more exorcist work, so that's fun. Moving on to the next thing, it is Fabricant 100, chapter number 31. And this is sort of a bittersweet chapter because we sort of understand it. Yeah, this series is probably ending soon, because what we really learn here is the location of Fabricant number 1's base of operations, right? Where he is stationed and where all of his very important things are going on. As we get some more character details into Ayako, as we eventually see that her and her brother Kugi sort of have one last talk before she ends up actually dying. So that sucks. Ayako is actually dead, but they have a really heartfelt conversation, and Fabricant 100 even steps in just to be like, hey, it's obvious, right? The difference between Fabricants and humans is if they're willing to fight for others' sakes or not. showing that, yeah, the Fabricants won't do that, but humans will. And sort of Ayako being a martyr makes sense for it, as we sort of get a little bit more of a flashback between the two of them, as we finally cut over to Fabricant number 1, his base of operations, as we see that he just raised from, I guess, an operation Fabricant number 99, which is all super big, as we see Fabricant 1 is like, oh, so the only thing that really hindered us for giving the location of my base was that we killed a 4-star combatant and severely wounded a 5-star one. That's not bad at all. I mean, it's honestly great. So he's like, that's a small price. I mean, it's a heavy price, but it's worth it for what we ended up getting done and what these other 2 Fabricants did. So I could see that we maybe spend like 2 or 3 chapters before we get to Fabricant number 1's base. I mean, we probably need to go back to the base, get like the one dude Luca who showed up early on, and the Hugo kid too, until when then we got Kugi, and then we got like a 5-man squad with Fashibi and Fabricant number 100 to go after Fabricant number 1. So I can definitely see that happening. And yeah, Fabricant number 99 looks powerful, as we see he uses like a bunch of ice powers or something. So yeah, we'll see what's going on next time in Fabricant number 100. And so the next chapter was Akane Banashi, chapter 71, where we finally get the end of Akane's performance, as we're just going through the chapter, and the cover page is just Shinta Arakawa, when he was still Shinta Arakawa, and she's just looking at stuff, and we get the end of Akane telling changing time, as things are just going on, and the whole thing is that during it, like, the Gakumon guy, who is like the very harsh judge, is pretty much just giving a bunch of background on it, but he's like, man, I heard very many rumors about her, but I didn't think she had this much skill at really depicting people. He's just like, it has been ages since I listened so intently to Azinza's performance, showing that, yeah, he really enjoyed it. As we just keep going through, alright, there's a few more jokes in the story, as eventually we pretty much get some note to where Master Ken is like, man, she is such a noteworthy talent, and she has the spirit to confront a great master. Ever since the Kraku Cup, I thought, with her disposition, she belongs in the Isho Arakawa school, as we see like a depiction of Kaisei, Hikaru, and Sales guy, which, Kaichi, yeah, his name's Kaichi. So we just see a bunch of depictions of all of them, but Iken's like, but here's the thing, there's a different art that matches you much better, or so I thought, but you have really grown to become a massive member of the Shiguma school. So yeah, she's part of school Shiguma through and through. Then we get some stuff with Makara where he's just going through like, alright, here's something that works good here again, but changing time required you to develop a new skill that was honestly harder to do altogether, so it made you grow as a Rakugoka, as it's pretty much like, hey, you can win this thing. As we cut to the last pages, where we finally see Shinta for the first time in 70 whole chapters. I mean, it's been really that long since we've seen him. As we see that Masaki, Akane's mom, is texting him like, hey, are you actually watching Akane's Rakugo going on right now? And she just like, huh. It's just like Masaki. I mean, she told me to watch it, but the image quality is so bad. Everything looks so blurry to me. As we just see that he is crying as much as he can. And yeah, everything's blurry because his tears are covering it up. And it's just a really nice moment. And yeah, it's really nice to see Shinta and sort of how happy he is that his daughter is doing very well in the art of Rakugo. So it is just so incredibly a good chapter. Just like seeing, oh man, it's so awesome for Shinta and Akane. But the real thing is, I don't think Akane is winning this performance. I think she can get a perfect judge, perfect score from all of the judges, but the online people just won't care about it as much as like they, for instance, cared about Hikaru. So I really don't think Akane is going to win this, and that's just really the big thing that I'm thinking about with Akane Banashi right now is we're going to probably have a separate arc where we just see all these other performers Rakugo, and Akane is just going to be training. She's not going to be in it just because while, yeah, she mastered herself and she learned so much about her own art and what she thought of her father's art being weak and all, I don't think she's going to win it, and that's just really alrighty, I don't think she's gonna win it, but great solid chapter through and through, and it's finally gotten out of that step of kind of Banashi where like, yeah, I want to read the next chapter now. It's not, well, for the longest times it's been, alright, I'll sit here whenever it comes, I'll read it, but I'm finally excited for it again. As we cut to another great chapter, as we get a color page at the beginning of it for Blue Box, chapter number 110, Interview. As we pretty much see that, alright, yeah, Taiki's home, and we learn what the big thing that Chinatsu is planning to do is make dinner all along for Taiki, so pretty cool there. And Taiki's like, oh, you mind if I help you out? And so they sort of start making stuff, but eventually Taiki's forced away to sit at the table as they eat some stuff, and Chinatsu draws a picture on his food, so it's pretty interesting as they're just going through and talking about stuff, as pretty much Chinatsu sort of does like an interview sort of thing, just like holding like a cup or like a popsicle or something. I don't know what it is, but just like sort of hang it to him as like, hey, so what are your thoughts on all of this stuff going on right now, right? And her final question is, how long are you going to keep calling me Chinatsu senpai? And Taiki's is like, I don't know. She's like, well, I am your girlfriend after all. And it's like, whole thing of Taiki's like, but that's weird. As we see Taiki tries to say Chinatsu, but every time he just has to add the word senpai to the end of it. It's sort of a funny thing, and it's really built up for comedy as it just keeps going on. And as it keeps going on, we see that, yeah, Chinatsu's calling him just Taiki now. And at the end of the chapter, it's another thing where like, alright, Chinatsu senpai, alright, we're gonna have to work on that. It's pretty funny, and it's just another great chapter of Blue Box, and really good to read for the first time, but just not a whole lot to recap about it. So with that, I don't really have too much else to say about Blue Box, but it was a very interesting chapter nonetheless, as we get to a chapter that I honestly didn't care about very much, and when I say very much, I mean pretty much at all, as we look at Elusive Samurai chapter 119. And to be honest, it's okay, let's run over a river, and oh, look at that, things are happening. The elusive warriors are starting to fight in this war, and Shiba ends up seeing that Tokoyuki is alive, and alright, we're gonna fight now. That's pretty much the whole chapter. I mean, it's just nothing of note that makes me just like, oh man, I can't wait to read like so more of this. It's like, okay. That's Elusive Samurai. Now on the Witch Watch, as we see the whole confrontation between Rabuka and Miharu and the gang, because the last chapter we saw that Jekyll and Fran showed up to help who's this Miharu out, so that's pretty cool. And we really get a thing of where Miharu ends up going over to Jekyll to sort of steal some of his essence, and we see that he starts like to drink something that Fran made that was sort of pretty much boost all of his strength and everything like that, as he gets ready to use that and start on some fighting stuff. Miharu gets healed a little bit, and oh boy, Jekyll was pretty much just there to help Miharu look to see what Rabuka's trigger is for her power. As we see that, okay, Jekyll eventually gets overpowered, and it's a big thing to where Fran is like, hey, come and fight me next, as Miharu's just like, watch closely what's going on here, as we see that Fran gets cut in half, and Miharu's like, okay, this is it, I solved it. As we see that what is really going on with, with Rabuka is, yeah, it's her blinks. Whenever she blinks, her magic triggers. So Miharu uses the clever thing he can of pocket sand and pretty much throws sand in her eyes so she can't blink, and goes up and touches her and steals part of her soul. And yeah, she gets completely drained. So he's like, your magic is in your blink, which makes sense because initially whenever we first learned about her, she was the blink magic user, the blink witch or whatever. So makes sense. I guess it was sort of spoiled early, but the way the magic was so fast is because she was literally just blinking, as they pretty much tie up her face. She's like, this is related to my trauma, but eventually decides to keep it on. So Miharu won in the fight between the vampire and the flash witch. Coolio. And with that, that is all 14 things that ran this week in Shonen Jump that I wanted to talk about, and talk about them I did. So now let's go on to what I think was the best series and the worst series and everything in between. I think the best series this week was Undead Unluck. I just really enjoyed like that page trend. Oh, it's a school life thing now. It totally makes sense for the way that Yoshifuma Tezuka writes his series, and I'm just really excited to see where it all goes from here. Next up was One Piece and Akane Banashi, which, to round out the top 3, those were 2 great picks, just because, yeah, all 3 of those series were really good this week, and One Piece had great moments with Garp and Kobe, and Akane Banashi was just really happy and sort of sad at the same time. And then next up is like this section of chapters I think were also really good, as we get into Tenmaku Cinema, My Hero Academia, Black Clover, Fabricant number 100, Witch Watch, Blue Box, and Kill Blue, and Ichinose's Family, as those were all just really solid chapters, I feel. And then we sort of get to what I think are the sort of more mid-series and not that great, as we get to Martial Master Asumi, Nue's Exorcist, and, of course, The Elusive Samurai. And yeah, that's everything in Jump this week. So now to show off my characters of the week, and of course these are the characters that I think were the MVPs and just the best characters that appeared this week in manga. And this week I couldn't just pick one, I had to pick 2, and those 2 were Garp and Shinta, because Garp just showed off so much cool, putting his faith into the current generation of Marines. And also that moment with Shinta at the end of Akane Banashi just, yeah, it made me cry a little bit. So this is very, very nice altogether. But besides for a few series, this was a great week in Jump, and I don't really have too much else to say about it. If you want to hear some of my thoughts on some of these series, like Tenmaku Cinema and My Hero Academia, I have videos up on the channel you can check out, pretty much coming up to the most recent chapter in terms of Tenmaku Cinema, and My Hero I still need to work on. I also talk about some Shonen Jump, or non-Shonen Jump series, such as, I do talk about Shonen Jump, which runs in Ultra Jump, and even, Oshinoko, which runs in Young Jump, so pretty cool stuff there. So if you like this video and like anything else to do, hopefully you consider subscribing, helping out the channel. It doesn't take much, but it really helps me out a lot. And just drop a like on the video or comment, and if you think my opinion on the Elusive Samurai is wrong, which it isn't, I'm telling you. And with that, I don't really have too much else to say. Just a very solid week in Jump, and yeah, this is going to be Glowplasma 231. Alt.